All right, this is lecture 7 on political machines. We're going to continue talking about immigration and the way that immigrants found their way in society. And we're going to focus mostly on the idea of a political machine as the lecture goes on. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Americanization movement. The Americanization movement basically is trying to make immigrants more American. We're trying to get them to fit into our society. And we call it this giant melting pot, and we're trying to get them to melt into our American ideals. And this is a political cartoon on the left over here, kind of shows that all these different types of people being like stirred together to create the ideal American. We're afraid of what's different, so we decide that we should make everything the same. So you can see all these programs with schools and social workers that they're trying to make immigrants fit into our type of society. Even like cooking and social etiquette classes are taught to try to teach American ideals in cooking and etiquette. Similar to the Freedmen's Bureau after slaves are released from slavery, we have the same idea here where they tried to melt into our society, and these people are now trying to melt into American society. So with increased immigration, we have increased nativism. Okay, nativism is anti-immigration. They're anti-Catholic, anti-Semitism. Natives are people that have been here for a while. Ironically, they're also immigrants, but they've been here for a few generations, and they feel like America is theirs, and the immigrants are coming to take them over. They're taking jobs, and they are paid less, so it's easier for them to take jobs because the employers don't have to pay them as much. So we have such intense nativism that we start to place restrictions on immigrants coming in. And the first one is the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, when we actually banned Chinese laborers from immigrating for 10 years. And it's kind of ironic that we do this because the Chinese played such a huge role in building the Transcontinental Railroad. And once we were done with them, it was like, all right, well, thanks, cool, no one else can come. All right. Literacy tests were also passed. Immigrants had to pass literacy tests as well, starting in 1917. All right, so immigrants, they had a lot of stuff going against them. They had to find a way to fight the man. Remember, they're living in conditions like this where it's super poor, and they don't have enough money to try to get out of it, so they want to try to find a way to make their lives better. All right, so the way that we do that is with high levels of people in the city, you have a government that starts to break down. The cities are so densely populated that it's hard to keep control of them. So things start to emerge called political machines, and that's kind of the idea of the topic for the lecture today, is that political machines are organized groups, and you can kind of think of them like clubhouses or fraternities that held political power in a city. And the way that they did that is they controlled the vote. So immigrants would work together to control the vote to elect people that would represent them. So these political machines wanted to get their people elected so they would have political power to eventually help them out in other ways, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they felt that if they could control the bottom, the lowest level of people, or the lowest income of people, income levels, then they can control the top and get elected. All right, so their main way of controlling and getting power is through the vote. So here's a pyramid scheme or a pyramid diagram of how this is going to work. So you have people at the bottom, they're local precinct workers, and they all work for the city boss who's up top. They report information that's going on in the town or in the block to the captains. So the captains are in charge of that block. So they get all the information from their local precinct workers. The captains then report to the ward boss, who's in charge of a whole electoral district. So our electoral district is rather large now, but it's most of Orange County is our electoral district. Back in New York in this time, or in big cities, Chicago, Boston, much smaller. So each block would be controlled by someone. The ward boss would be in charge of like 10, 20, or 30 blocks. And the city boss is in charge of everything, and they control the actions of the entire city. And they're the ones that, are kind of like setting the scheme and what they want to have happen. And they go out and they tell the people below them what they need to get done. So members of the political machines were first and second generation immigrants themselves that had managed to work their way up through the machine. And that was kind of important because they spoke other languages. So if you're an immigrant who just came to America, you would be able to talk to someone who spoke your language and someone that could empathize with you and would help you out. And they look like good people that were trying to help you. So immigrants supported political party machines with their vote in order in exchange for helps and services. So they would get, political machines would help these people get jobs, find homes, become citizens, and all they had to do was vote for the people that these political machines were telling them to vote for. The problem with the political machines is that they become very, very corrupt. They begin to cheat in elections. Voter registration wasn't very well guarded back then, and they were able to vote. People were able to vote multiple times. They actually had dead people voting in elections. In some cases, you have, 250 people coming out for election when there's only 100 registered voters. So it's very obvious that there was something illegal going on. Another illegal thing that was happening was graft. So once these people got power, they used this political power and influence for personal gain. It's like taking bribes or skimming money off the top. Okay, great example is between 1866 and 1871, the government was looted of almost $100 million by Boss Tweed. So Boss Tweed is in charge of a political machine, and he's based out of Tammany Hall in New York. New York needed a new courthouse, and he was in charge of building this courthouse. And what he did is he overcharged the government by a ton in order to try to take money for himself. So the cost of the courthouse officially became $13 million, which is $178 million in today's money. That's a ton of money. It really should have only cost a few million. So what he did is he started to take money away from that. Okay, so this $13 million, which actually happens to be twice what we paid for Alaska, only in 1867. So during this time, obviously there's some sort of scam going there. So what he did is he took a lot of money for himself, but he also paid the workers, the contractors, a lot of money as well. So Carpenter, who worked for a month, was paid $360,000 for 1 month's work, which is $4.9 million today. So obviously grossly overpaid. Also, a woodworker made $179,000, which is $2.5 million in today's money, for providing 3 tables and 40 chairs. Okay, so he was able to buy off other people as a way to kind of keep a lot of the money for himself in order to allow this to all kind of work out. Paying a lot of money to other people allowed him to kind of siphon money off for himself. All right, so that's political machines, and you can see it's obviously very corrupt and a lot of shady business going on. That's the lecture for today.